Alright, how's it going? So, for my PE10 skill assignment, I had to choose a sport that I was competent in, and then run through 5 ways to quote-unquote improve it, or just work on it. So, the sport that I chose is cross-country running, and I'm going to head off on a run and work on this assignment. So let's go! Alright, so to start us off, I'm going to head off on a run, and there are 5 aspects of cross-country training that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about start, like how you start the race, pacing yourself, running on hills, running on grass, dirt, and mud, and then, of course, what you do before the race. So, without any ado, I'm going to head off on my run, and I will see you again when I start doing the start. Alright, so I've ran a little bit over a kilometer now. I'm going to now set up the camera and show you the exercise that I do for going off of the start in a race. Alright, so off the start in a race, you want to be able to get out quickly and efficiently from the gun. Being left behind at this point, it puts you at a disadvantage as the course narrows and passing becomes harder. However, you also don't need to start off in the beginning. So, my training that I do for going off the start is intervals of 200 to 400 meter running on a flat grass field at a pace that's about 10 seconds per meter faster than my normal cross-country effort. So I'll show you what that looks like right now. So that's a very simple training exercise, but it comes in very handy when you're trying to pace yourself off the start of the race. Next up, I'm going to talk about hill running. Alright, so moving on to hill running. None of the hills that you're going to find in Vegreville compare at all to the hills you find during cross country. However, there is one more like a training run that I like doing for hill running. So there's one hill in town that it's not like it's steep, but it's long and curvy and I like getting up to it. So we're gonna do tempo runs that start with gradual runs and then turning around and running 800 meters down the hill. And throughout the season, as you continue doing runs like this, your speed and time will eventually get better. And even though the hill isn't as steep or as twisted and everything as you're going to find during an actual cross-country race, I find that this does help a lot in preparing you for hill running. So, I will show you that training now. Now generally, when it comes to hill training for cross country, you want to be training on a hill that is most like the conditions you will find during your actual race. So you want to be training on a hill that has rougher terrain and is maybe dirt. But unfortunately, we are a little bit sparse of that in Vegreville, so you do have to make do with what you have. The best way to take advantage of these training exercises is to incorporate them into your running routine. So for example, in grade 11, so in this upcoming year, it's a 5-kilometer run for cross country for me. So I've been doing 5-kilometer runs and incorporating this sort of start training and hill training into the runs. Next up, I'm going to do a piece on talking about how to run on grass, dirt, and mud. So, in cross country running, you will find that a lot of the trails that you run on wind up looking like this, covered in grass, dirt, and mud. To run through these clearly requires extra energy than it would to running on pavement, like up there. That's why I don't really have a specific training exercise when it comes to running through uneven terrain, but my biggest tip for it is that when you are training for your cross-country meets, at least 50% of your running should take place on trails or on uneven terrain such as this, because otherwise, when it comes to the actual race, you aren't going to be ready. One other thing I just realized I forgot to mention when I was talking about running on grass, dirt, and mud. When you're doing workouts that don't involve running, so when you're training for cross country, but you aren't planning on going on a run, something that definitely helps ready you for running on these kind of terrain is if you do exercises that focus on your core, hip flexors, and lower legs, because these are the parts of your body that will give you the extra momentum that is needed to push off and maintain your form when running. So, when it comes to pacing yourself during a cross-country race, there's not many training techniques I can give you except for the fact that you should just run. Everybody has their own pace that they're going to train at. Everybody has their own endurance level. And besides just going on runs, getting out there and, well, trying, you'll discover your own endurance level and the best way to pace yourself. There are a few tips and things that you should remember when it comes to this though. No race is run in the first 100 meters unless you're doing a 100-meter run at track and field, which this is not. Also, you should know that by the first 800 meters, you should try to have settled yourself into a pace that is comfortable for you. And yeah, not too much I can tell you about this, except for get out there and run. There are 2 tips that I can give you for when you're pacing during a race. So, the first is time trials. If you know what time you want to beat and you know how fast you have to run to do that, set yourself little goals along the way, like, okay, I'm gonna finish this lap in this amount of time, etc., and match those with how you trained. There's also another technique, which is not as reliable as time trials, but it's like the buddy system. So if you practiced and trained with somebody and you know that you two can pace each other, it's nice to run with them during the race, as that could also help you keep your pace. Alright, and I am back from my run. So, I went for a 7-kilometer run. However, due to the fact that I was filming through all of it, it was probably one of the most inefficient runs I've ever gone on. But it's fine, I got the assignment done. So, for the 5th and final part of this assignment, I'm going to be going over 4 things that you should do the day before a race. Starting with number 1 is stay hydrated. You should drink plenty of water the day before a race, as it will help you stay hydrated throughout the next day. And you want to be careful, however, as overhydration can be just as bad for you as dehydration. One more note on this topic is you should avoid caffeine and alcohol, both of which can interfere with your sleep, which is not something you want the day before a race. Next up is you should carb load correctly. In the days leading up to your race, 85 to 95% of your calories should come from carbohydrates, as this will help your glucose levels increase and store more energy during the race. It is worth noting, however, carb loading does not mean overloading, and you should focus on consuming 4 grams of carbohydrate for every pound of body weight. Next up is you should make sure everything is ready for the race. Make sure you have everything laid out and everything set up and ready for the next morning. And last tip, number 4, is you should make sure you rest your legs. Yes, stretch them out. Yes, you can go out and exercise, but don't go for a run, or if you do, just go for a light walk. You don't want to overuse your legs the night before a race. So, this was my PE 10 cross-country skills assignment, I'm guessing. I don't really know what the name of this is. Either way, I hope you enjoyed, and that's the assignment.